If you can believe it, the 2022 Formula 1 season is already halfway through its allotted runtime, and around the mammoth task of working out upgrade timings with F1's worldwide logistics, the teams have had to get their teeth into the problems raised by the return of ground effects. It's been a huge effort to dial out the early problems with porpoising, but now that most teams have seen the back of the vertical shaking, they can focus their attention on coaxing performance out of the car. Of course, every car on the 2022 grid has its own strengths and weaknesses. There might be one or two teams who would be better off diverting focus to next season, but they still need to develop an understanding of this year's car to understand where to go in 2023. Let's take a look at what each team needs. Red Bull, medium to low speed cornering performance and weight reduction. Red Bull's RB18 car chews up the miles at full throttle and seems to have a barnacle-like grip in the high speed corners. This is particularly potent in the races, where the high fuel loads negate the RB18's largest disadvantage, weight. Thus, Max Verstappen has been largely outgunned in qualifying, which he puts down to the car needing to go on a diet. We're still a bit heavy, the reigning champion confessed, so of course when all the fuel comes out that's just a limitation we have, so we still need to lose weight with the car, which we're working on. Ferrari, power unit reliability and strategy. The charred remains of Carlos Sainz's Ferrari F175 in Austria was another demonstration of the reliability issues that have pervaded Ferrari's season. It feeds the narrative that Ferrari's biggest problem in 2022 is itself. Had reliability been bulletproof, strategic calls more proactive, and even with his unforced errors at Imola and France, Leclerc would be leading the title race. Soul searching in the engine department should offer fixes, and Ferrari was tactically superior to the Red Bull squad in Austria, albeit helped by the RB18's greater tendency to eat through its Pirelli rubber. But it was not so in France, as Ferrari arguably fluffed its lines with Carlos Sainz. There's probably also scope to find a little bit more pace in a straight line, and Ferrari has been actively trimming its wings down in order to get more top speed, but it's not the be-all and end-all. Mercedes continue finding performance from the floor. Out of the teams affected by bouncing, Mercedes had it worst. The W13 was way too eager to start bouncing on the straights and leave both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell in considerable pain after races. But the team seems to have turned the corner. As Mercedes focused its resources on trying to dial out unwanted movement from the car, performance updates had to take a back seat. So it has ground to make up in the wind tunnel. Thankfully for the team, dropping a few places in the Constructors' Championship has given it a little bit more aerodynamic testing time relative to Red Bull and Ferrari, offering the Silver Arrows a chance to catch up. What the W13 does have on its side, however, is reliability, and that's been key in consistent points grabbing. Alpine, continue search for consistency and avoid black cats. Alpine itself has endured some suspect luck this season, particularly on Fernando Alonso's side of the garage. The two-time champion endured a miserable run of form at the Bahrain opener, with reliability issues, first lap contact and time penalties all keeping him out of the points in 4 successive races. Alonso has since finished in the top 10 in the last 8 Grand Prix, but the Spanish racer still endured misfortune in Austria after failing to fire up for the sprint race. Ocon, as is customary in modern F1, has been a paragon of consistency, while Alpine itself has not been shy with its upgrades as it hopes to surpass McLaren and reel in Mercedes for a more favourable Constructors' Championship position. The A522 is a good all-rounder, but as Mercedes begins to improve, the team might not necessarily have enough in reserve to usurp the German manufacturer. Still, continuing to bring updates on a consistent basis is definitely on the team's agenda. McLaren, make the most of the little updates. The MCL36 is a real curate's egg. It's not got any glaring weaknesses, but it's also not got any obvious strengths compared to its competitors. On a good day, it gives Lando Norris a car that he can fight for strong points with, but on a day when the car is struggling, the McLarens are glued to the midfield. Considering where McLaren started the season and the brake issues that neutered the car in the Bahrain season opener, it's been a good turnaround in form. But Norris's claim that the team has been 2 steps behind could be applied for the whole season. It still needs to find straight line performance where the cars are well among the midfield runners. The team brought a new floor and side pods to find more performance in France, but beyond that, we're not expecting anything major from the team. Alfa Romeo, get reliability sorted. The biggest issue that Alfa Romeo faces is in its reliability. Both Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu have been frequent visitors to the pits mid-race to retire, and although the issues have improved as the season has gone on, it means that Alfa is probably not as close in the point standings to McLaren and Alpine as it could be. The clutch issues that plagued starts at the opening races have been largely dialed out, and it could well be that its problems are linked to the issues Ferrari faced earlier this year. As for the externals of the car, things seem to be in good shape. The C42 is quick, and the car was already well below the weight limit before 3 kg was tacked on later. This gives the engineers much more freedom with ballast. Haas. Anything really. Although it occupies 7th in the Constructors' Championship, Haas still hasn't really updated its 2022 car at all, before bringing a host of new upgrades to Hungary. Perhaps still burned by the issues it faced in 2019, where every passing update made the VF19 worse, the American squad has been focusing on getting the most out of the VF22 in standard trim. This year's Haas is a night and day step over the old car, but that's only to be expected when you consider last year's machinery was a 2020 spec car with an updated floor. Perhaps aerobalance will be a key point of improvement given Schumacher's struggles with an unpredictable car, but in recent rounds he seems to have found a happy medium. AlphaTauri. Regain momentum with French Grand Prix updates. AlphaTauri had introduced a few new changes to the floor earlier this season, but it's simply fallen behind many of its rival teams, and shipped a further position in the Constructors' Championship to Haas. There isn't any specific issue that AlphaTauri needs to work on, and the car seems relatively benign in terms of handling. It just wasn't particularly quick prior to the French Grand Prix. Straight line speed is very good, and the blue and white cars are regularly among the upper echelons of the speed trap in race trim. It's just been missing out in the other departments. Aston Martin pours updates to understand latest packages. The Silverstone squad has introduced 2 hefty upgrade packages in 2022 to lift its fortunes, after a tough start to life with its AMR22. New bodywork arrived in Spain, while the team added a revised floor and a new beam wing for the British Grand Prix to try and find more pace, but it's hard to say at this point if they've truly delivered. Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll have both managed points in the races following the Spanish Grand Prix, but the car doesn't seem to offer the consistency needed to get both drivers into the top 10 simultaneously. The team still needs time to assess the developments it's already made, and build some momentum for the second half of the year. That'll help too in developing for 2023, as it firmly needs to understand why it hasn't enjoyed much success compared to previous years. Williams. Understand new updates and find more downforce. Like Aston Martin, Williams decided to change tack with its bodywork concept, and prepared a new set of clothes for the FW44 at Silverstone. Plans to get both cars fitted with the new parts for Austria were paused after Alex Albon's crash at the start of the British Grand Prix, but initial signs suggest that the overall boost in performance should carry forward. It now has a couple of race distances with the new updates, and very nearly helped Albon work his way into the points in Austria. But Williams will hope that working on getting to grips with the new parts will yield more traction and performance, particularly as the car doesn't seem to be as balanced in the lower speed circuits. But where do you think the teams need to improve over the rest of the season? Feel free to drop a comment and subscribe to our Autosport channel to find out more as the season goes on.